about it is, Michael, there's no point turning up to go on right on the field with your football strap on and expect to score a hat-trick. You need to do a bit of warming up. You need to do a bit of training.
I like that. Okay. Welcome to the Gritty Nitty. My name is Tosca Jackson, and this is the first episode of our podcast. We actually did one a little bit a while ago, but it went all wrong. So we're doing it again because our sound man's not very good and didn't do it properly. Anyway, what is the Gritty Nitty? The Gritty Nitty it's a podcast. I've got 3 esteemed guests who've all written books, which I'm incredibly jealous about. So it means that I have to hold the fort and introduce the whole thing because they got far greater things to say, and they're far better than me at saying it and that sort of stuff. So I'm just here as a caveat to their wonderment. As I say, my name's Tosca Jackson. My only claim to fame is that I started a worldwide phenomenon called KISS when I was a teenager. Google it, Tosca Jackson, KISS FM. It's all verified. It's all out there online. And I feel a lot better about myself now. The Gritty Nitty is a podcast we've all come together to formalise, to kind of to look at, to kind of work at. And we're trying to, well, for me, and this session here is just about the introduction. And for me, the Gritty Nitty is really about authenticity, and what we want to explore here on these podcasts is what it is to be who and what it is that you are, and and whatever format that takes, whether it's about how you feel about stuff, how you really feel about stuff. I always say there's the truth. You tell yourself the truth, you tell other people, and the truth. Yeah. And the essence of this podcast for me is to try and uncover some truths, some real truths that kind of evoke some kind of discussion, evoke some kind of challenge of perception, and some kind of understanding of what it is to be. As I said, we had a trial go at this, and people kind of spoke about stuff that I didn't really talk. I just kind of introduced it before, but I just want to kind of say this, that my father used to work just up the road at 309 Regent Street. He used to work for the City of Westminster Polytechnic. And he was an accountant. He was a pretty rubbish accountant. But he was an accountant. But what I can remember about my father is that he went to work when it was dark. And he came back when it was dark. And it scared the life out of me. He used to come back, he used to lie on the sofa, and all his money used to fall out, which I used to steal, obviously, because I was that kind of kid. Do you know what I mean? And I remember thinking to myself, this being a man is an incredibly difficult thing to do. That's my first kind of recollection of kind of the fear of, this is what you do. You know what I mean? This bloke goes out every single day. It's dark. He comes back. He's trashed to pieces. He comes back, he's complaining. He's not presenting me with some sort of pleasant experience about what life is and where it's at. He's showing me turmoil. He's showing me, we are talking, the 70s Britain, and a black immigrant, in London. So it might be a different kind of calculation and understanding of the 3 guests on the sofa. So the 3 guys that are here with me today are Michael Emmett, Mark Dempster, and the wonderful young wee man, Paul Ferris himself. And they've all got their own stories to tell. And I suppose the Gritty Nitty for me is about understanding, trying to sorry about the delay, I will get there in the end. It's about trying to convey some sort of deeper level and understanding of what it is to be me, and more importantly trying to own that in a space that turns around and says, you know what, wow, this is really who I am, and and try and honor that, and and obviously you guys out there listening, Radio Land and YouTube Land and Podcast Land, we want your interaction. We want you to get in touch. We want you to pose your kind of questions, stuff for us to discuss. Maybe come along and sit on the sofa with us, one afternoon, and wax lyrical about what a particular subject may mean to you. Without further ado, I'm going to get on to, the first participant, sitting to my left, the wonderful man that I've known for many, many years, Mr. Michael Emmett. Come on, Michael, sing your song.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not a bad singer, actually.
I heard you actually earlier on, and you're terrible. Yeah, diabolical.
That's late.
Anyway, I think I've got that voice. You know what you think? Oh, I could have made it.
No, you couldn't have made it.
I mean, I've been in music. No, my name's Michael Emmett, with these three lovely guys. And the nitty gritty in this room I like is that there's something happened here today, because nitty gritty is not all bad. Nitty gritty can be good.
But what's gritty nitty though?
What's gritty nitty? Well, you've done me there, but I will continue. I will try my best. He's obviously very experienced at this stuff. Do you know what? I mean, I know we shouldn't go into it, but you do the best Rupert, and we can explain that later. You do the best Rupert. No, I've heard you twice, and there was 21 years apart, and they was both blinking good, and I didn't swear. But I'm Michael. So I've come from a family of, it was a criminal family. Not it was all criminals, but on my mother's side, there was a big family. My grandparents, there was 14 on one side, very busy years ago at sex, I think, these people, pre-war or whatever it was. I had 14 on my grandfather's side, 11 on my grandmother's side, and they were sort of an okay family, South London family, used to play the piano, flower sellers in London. But the nitty gritty of the family come from my father. And his father was apparently, I'm going to get a bit more explanatory here. Please get this down out there, son.
Yes.
It's bigger than last time.
Yeah.
Very disappointed. No, I'm only joking. But this is the nitty gritty. But sweet. So my father's family, they were Irish. They were from Ireland. Yeah. There's Jewish in the blood. There's Irish in the blood, Scottish in the blood, and I was a mixture of it, and there was my grandfather was shot in the war. He was a cripple. They called him Sticks. He didn't like the American soldiers because his eldest daughter ran off with one, and that was where the nitty gritty or the gritty nitty, the genetic value in my family was it got impregnated. Whatever happened before my grandfather, I don't know. But my grandfather, never met him. And he killed it. He was very bright. And I've met his mates as the years have gone on. And they say he was the doctor of the road. He's super intelligent. But no, super intelligent. My grandmother, she was a lovely lady. And my dad... am I going on a bit?
No.
I thought he was... It's cool?
That's very cool. Come on.
And
come on, Mike.
No, I'm sweet. I'm groovy. I'm all right. It takes more than this to knock me. As you'll soon find out, a lot of us have got a story. Anyway, down to my grandfather. So he killed himself. He drank a thing called acetone. They found him with the lining of his stomach coming out of his mouth. Brian went to live with Arthur, and you'll find out more about Brian and Arthur another day. So Dad was left young. He was a college kid. He was an athlete. He was a boxer, but he was a rascal. And I think that he didn't show me how to be a criminal. He didn't show me how to be obsessive, angry, and discontent. But he was that, and I didn't learn that behaviour. I believe it was given to me. So the nitty gritty of Michael was it's been a lifelong experience of nitty gritty, whatever you want to say. So I've lived in that sort of environment many years. I got taken out of London, taken down to Surrey because the old man thought, we'll make it there. But it was in me, yeah. And it's been a long struggle to get it out of me, whatever was in me, because I know you're going to ask me what was in me. But then there was the light came on a number of times. I had a grandmother who was a staunch Catholic, bless her. And she used to pray. She had water from Lourdes and this and that. I used to go, and she was handy for a knicker, my nan. But I'd have to suffer, the water from Lourdes, bless him. And I'm not against none of it. I used to drink the olive oil. It was vile. That was blessed, and that cleansed the soul. So that was my sort of introduction to religion.
Right.
But so then on my journey, I always had a faith in God, to be honest with you. And I was a drug smuggler as well, and I used to pray to get me cannabis home. I don't think those prayers got answered. But I did a few times. But so I moved through this sort of life with a father who was a criminal, but I could see that he had the insecurities. That he was also had the cowardly thing. He always had although he was a violent man, he could fight, but he was a mixture of that opposite: the greed, the lust, the control, and he was very broken. Fortunate for him, he had a wonderful wife in my mother. So that's what happened to me. That was my my mixture of opposite. The equilibrium wasn't cool. And then it got infested with sex at a very young age, and I thought that you had to be...
So how young are we talking about?
Well, there was a bit of abuse that happened to me as a young boy, but then I started sort of thinking you had to kiss and cuddle and put your, touch girls at the age of 12 or 13. I thought it was normal. And this is not against women, because I love women, and I've got I've got children, four daughters, so I have respect for women today. But the generation that came on to me existed in me without me calling upon it. It was who I was. As much as I could be educated, we had a nice home in Epsom, we'd done all sorts of things like that, but it just didn't work. I was dysfunctional at a very young age, and I turned to crime. But one of the things that and we spoke about it earlier. Was nitty gritty as being nice as well. Was the birth of my first child, and it was a spiritual moment. It was 38 years ago, and the lady, there was a complication. Something to do with my wife and my daughter. She wasn't born at that particular time, and I went to slip out the room. I was frightened. Fear came upon me, and the lady said to me, was you there when the baby was conceived? I did say I hope so, and she said, well, you should be there when it's delivered, because it's the most beautiful thing. And it was tough. It was 22 hours. I didn't stay the whole 22 hours. I fell a kip in the waiting room, and I came back, and there it was. I saw my daughter being born. Now that was tough. I mean, can you imagine a child inside the mother's womb? Everything's groovy, it's all peaceful, it's having a great time, don't speak, ain't got to be told off, and then all of a sudden something says, put your head down there because you're being born. I mean, it's massive, isn't it? But we take that for granted. And all of a sudden the struggle, the this and that, and then the end of it was this child that was given to me, my eldest daughter Amy, and I was frightened I was going to drop her. But it was the first time that love language came out of my heart, without the madness of the addiction of being told what to do. I was always in trouble. So then that was my journey, and I was never faithful to myself. I was faithful to other people. I had this crazy addiction about life. It wasn't just drugs for me. It was because I didn't like myself. I was very insecure, but you wouldn't see it. I was a man of many faces. So gritty nitty was like I was bouncing about in it. I lived nitty gritty.
So you said something there that was really interesting. It was really interesting, and it just got me thinking. You said your addiction to life. What could you just kind of explain that a bit? What that means?
Yeah. Well, addiction to life. I mean, addictions are tough, aren't they? Because it's an unnatural drive. Although if you use it wisely. So I was addicted to what it meant because I didn't know what it meant. I was addicted to. I started earning money when I was 11. At it, thieving. So money was a thing before I knew it. I got addicted to school, but didn't like school. I got addicted to sport. I weren't bad at sport. I got addicted to women. It was all addiction. It was all this high and low. And eventually, when I got to where the top of the mountain in whatever that was meant to be in my life, whether it was rugby, women, money, crime, it was never enough.
Okay.
It was never enough.
Okay. So, just as a journeyman kind of description and understanding of what addiction is. Like for me, it's the thing that I think that when I get it, it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my kind of, my tin pot kind of analogy of what I think addiction is. And that, what you described there, is a perfect example of that. Because ostensibly it's never enough, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all of that stuff, whether it be the rugby, whether it be the women, whether it be the money, none of it's ever enough.
No.
Right, okay, interesting. So the question I asked that you skirted around, which I kind of quite like, you haven't really kind of answered it. I'm going to ask you again, right? Yeah. What does the gritty nitty mean to you? And more importantly, we're sitting here, and it's a laugh, it's a banter, and there is a serious kind of message in all this as well, right? It's kind of like, I'll put it another way. What do you hope to achieve yourself by taking part in these debates?
Well, I suppose I have from my traumaed life, I think I have a value. We only keep what we got by giving it away, and I seem to help other people quite well, and that's not me ego jumping up. I have a gift with it, I really do, and I speak from my experiences. So maybe I'd like to give a message of hope, right. A message of change. It's available. It's nitty gritty to get it. It doesn't come easy, and I think we got to have a set of cojones. That's, I'm sorry to offend there, it's not a swear word, but if you know your Spanish, you know what I mean.
Yeah, we'll leave the swearing to Mark. I'm sure he'll get into that.
We'll get into Spain. Yeah, rerun.
Yeah, I don't swear, I'm a biblical man. So what do I aim to achieve? I aim to achieve to be of value, to tell the truth about what my truths are, and I suppose our battle in my life is the ego and the pride, and I just think this is a room here where we can just be ourselves. Dirty underpants, dirty socks, wax in our ears, dirty nose, who cares? This ain't a show for like who's looking the best and who's got the best watch on. This is a show of truth. There's no nonsense here, and I honestly think the four of us sitting here do have a value about how to recover from past experiences that have generated pain, misery and heartache, and maybe even recover from things that we thought were happy, things that we thought had a value, to find out that they didn't. This world is I think there's a great thing in the Bible, and I don't want to get too biblical, but I will here. And it's about reaping what we sow. So it's about learning to sow good, I believe. It's about me being kind to myself so I can be kind to Paul. And it's about me taking responsibility of what I can do. Because if I help someone, I don't know, for some way, it comes back and it helps me. And is that a selfish thing? No, because I need help. I need to recover every day. I need to pick up my cross. I need to be sharing. I need to be truthful, because they say we're as sick as our lie. And I think, do we lie to ourselves?
All right. So one of the reasons I'm doing this bit, like the hosting bit, I've been kind of shoehorned into it, is that I haven't written a book because I'm inadequate and haven't come to it, and you three guys have, and and I'm deeply ashamed of the fact that I haven't done that, and I feel less than. But we won't bang on about my insecurities. But you've actually written a book recently, Michael, and why don't you tell people out there in radio land, podcast land, YouTube land, what that is about, and how did you come to write it, and what was your sense of, okay, is this something I have to do? Is this something that I need to do? Or, is it, what's the purpose?
Right, good question. You need to write a book. You can't.
I won't be able to come in the room.
You can't see it not being an author.
I know. I can't. I can't.
No, it's quality. I tell you what, I've been an interesting book. What you write, you're an interesting guy. I've got a lot of time at you, Tosca. I mean that. So the book is I'm an ex-criminal,
Has it got a title? That's what I'd really like to know.
The title is called Sins of Fathers. So that comes from what I was talking about earlier with my grandfather, my dad and I. And I think for me, one of the major things about this book is that I break the sin for the next generation. I don't want my grandchildren or my children going through what I went through, and it wasn't because of bad parenting, it was who I was. I didn't ask, I copped for who I was. And so my behaviour around relationships was useless. It was terrible. I'd done things that I'm not proud of. I was arrested, and I don't want to bang on about this, but I was arrested at the time, was the largest importation of cannabis into the country, and it was quite funny in the court because the judge wanted it to be because it's a class B, isn't it? He said he wants it to be a class A because he wanted a sentence that's big time, and all of a sudden it was all like armed guards there. It was all nonsense, a bit of puff. And one of the barristers stood up. The judge went, "This should be a class A drug, and it's a killer." And one of the barristers stood up and he said, Your Honour, excuse me. He said, "I think the only way this could kill anybody if it fell on top of them." So that was that. So the book's about the change from the darkness to the light in my way, from the dark thoughts to the nicer thoughts. I was a big drug smuggler. My father was a criminal. I got a lump. I was in prison. I got with the fine. At one time it was 18. Well, it was 12 and a half years I got plus a fine, and I was in a cell with my dad. I got nicked with my father, arrested with my father. So it was a real strange thing. And then he used to go in the church because I think he used to mess about in the church. He was, he used to go, "But come in the church and be quiet, sit in the back." But I had something very special happen to me in the church. And there was another thing when my daughter was born to this. There was a spiritual awakening for me. Now, as much as we're crazy in what we do, and when something touches you in that dark, horrible soul place that's generated affairs, greed, poverty, wealth, prisons, dysfunction, copious amounts of drinks and drugs. When something touches that and you think, "Oh, well, it was like Dynarod." So when it touched that, I'd be a fool to dismiss it. I wasn't high. And so that was my journey. So we started a course in prison. It's called Alpha. It's a Christianity course, by the way. I'm not religious. And then I started to investigate Jesus, in a way that it wasn't a church thing I was investigating. I found him quite interested. And I tell you what encouraged me a lot. On the cross, whether you believe it or not, next to him was two villains. And I thought, I've got a chance here, that's criminals. And he spoke about paradise. What is paradise? Paradise for me is cleansing that dirty part of my soul that had been traumatized since I was a 4-year-old child to today. So for me to be on this podcast, I've wrote a book called Sins of Fathers. I've had big businesses. I've been homeless. So I've been across the board. I own the group. I was part owner of the group Kasabian. Am I name dropping? Maybe. But there was stuff. I've had radio stations. I've had all sorts of things. But I've also been in a lot of financial difficulties, down to the unbalanced equilibrium. So I've got a message to tell. I love being with you guys. I really enjoy it. So there's a lot of nitty gritty in there. I can't really answer it in one line to me, nitty gritty. If you want to buy the book, you can buy it on Amazon. It ain't a bad read. And it's all in there, Tosca. And why did I write it? I needed to say sorry as well to quite a number of people around finances, around adultery. Says I have a few subjects on there. But the blessing is, I've got 4 wonderful children. I've got 7 wonderful grandchildren. So whatever my journey entails for me, I have a responsibility to those 4 nearly 8 grandchildren, and I really would like to make a difference in their life, that they don't have to see or hear what I went through. And if I spot the telltale signs, I've got the gift to try and change it for them by leading by example, and I have a lot of faith in prayer. Does that answer your question?
Okay then. Okay then. So,
do you want a few criminal stories?
I'm sure we'll get to criminal stories in another episode.
Bless you.
That was Michael Emmett. Moving on swiftly to
Mark Dempster. Okay, Tosca. Right. Okay. So my name's Mark Dempster. Like Michael and like Paul, I've wrote a book, and you keep mentioning it, right? Okay, I'm not doing that. Put your nose in it here, Tosca, at all.
Of this podcast, we will not be mentioning books. I don't know what's happened there. So, so it was great. It was great listening to Michael as well, and so Gritty Nitty Gritty. So what does it mean? So why? I mean, there was look. If we take it back, right? I think the 4 of us probably shouldn't be alive. I think we've went through. If we think it just
really,
speak for yourself.
My experience is, look, if I think of Paul and I think of Michael and I think of you as well, Tosca,
I can understand Paul.
Paul.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean that. I meant it in love. But
you really,
the real deal.
Because really, if you think of it, look at the experiences we've had. So why are we here, right? So I'll get straight to the meat and potatoes. Why I'm here is because I know that the connection with each other, right, and the what comes together when we're and what we can bring is we've got this experience, we've got our own personal experience over years and years. There's a massive potential. There's a massive potential to reach out and to really target a large audience. And to continue on and to really reach out to as many people as possible. I think for me what I noticed about do you know what, guys? I think I have to stop because I can't concentrate when Tosca's out. Right, no, here he is. Come on. Right, okay. It's just that I've just lost it. I lost it in a second there. Right.
Well, I understand how you feel. He asks you a question
and then he leaves the room.
You don't feel important enough. I understand.
What happened there is I lost the focus. I lost my train of thought when you were walking. I started thinking, how long is he going to be at the toilet? When's he coming back in?
It was pretty rubbish. We're going to go again.
Right, go back. Right, go back. Right, so what I think, look, I think that back to that thing. I don't think any of us should be here. I think it's almost like our lives that we've had and the life that I've had is that I feel, and why I wrote the books was I wanted to bring the characters that I've met along that pathway, I wanted to bring them to life in the book, because otherwise they're forgotten about, no one knows them. And I wanted to, and during the process of writing the book, my father died, and before my father died, I says to him, listen, Dad, I'm going to put you in the book, and because you're an alcoholic and you were involved in crime, just like Michael's dad, but not to the same degree, but I says, I want you to, and he says, listen, son, if it makes you a few quid, right, just put whatever you want. And that's what his words were. And in the process, he died, and when he died, he was 14 years sober. I'd done his eulogy. I'd created a relationship back with him where we were estranged for many years. I'd helped him get sober.
Okay, so can I just unpack? I want to try and unpack this, right? So the question I asked, right, is what's the Gritty Nitty mean to you, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, why are you here, right? So the stuff that you talk about, your dad, about recovery and being sober and that sort of stuff, is something that we're going to have to explain to the people out there. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, so if we go back, let's just go back a little bit and try and unpack that, right? So let's start in the beginning. So I have this business kind of principle, right? Yeah, I have this business kind of principle. And that is, if you want to explain something, try and explain it in 25 words or less, right? So let's go for 25 words or less, right? On what the Gritty Nitty means to you and what the purpose of, what this podcast and what it is to you and what your kind of exploration of self or exploration of us or us as a body and what you want to kind of achieve from this union, from the Gritty Nitty Podcast. This is the introduction. This is kind of like the beginning. And what we'll do, then we'll move swiftly into kind of those other experiences and the book. I don't even know what, the people out there don't even know what the book's called or what it's about. And, I know that it's nothing to declare. Okay.
25 words, right? That's pressure. That's pressure, right? Without swearing, right? So I guess for me, it's about authenticity, about providing a message based on past experience. No, this is not going to happen. This is authentic. 18, right? Okay, but like basically remembering childhood, poverty, addiction, life experience. Are we all addicts? Is everybody? Is it the human condition? Everybody's got emotional disturbance. Maybe lots of people have trauma. They don't necessarily turn to drugs or alcohol or smuggling or whatever. They might turn to another thing. So it's about us carrying a message. I believe.
Okay, let's forget about
25 words.
I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm not giving you a hard time, and I'm not trying to dig you out, right? I'm just going to dig you out because I think this is really kind of quite important, right? And what you mentioned early on is you talked about authenticity, right? You talked about authenticity, and you talked about, a desire, right? You talked about desire and authenticity. Is that a desire for authenticity? Is it a desire to discover more about yourself? Is it about in that journey, other people engage in that and discover something about themselves? Because the other stuff, addiction and recovery are what I'd say mute at this point, right? As a kind of like as someone who's a nomad who doesn't understand what that stuff is, it's like, why would I be interested in that? So I think that what I want to know for myself, right, and for the rest of the people, not that I can speak for the rest of it, what I want to know for myself is, I want to know a bit about Mark Dempster. Right, and I want to know what is your, what's your motivation? It's kind of like, to be perfectly honest, just to clarify me, and maybe this might help you. I want more for myself, right? I want a better Tosca. I want a more understanding Tosca. I want somebody who, that gets some sort of peace, some sort of understanding, and some sort of it's like a prompting to do more. It's like a prompting to lift back. You're a therapist. I don't know if people out there know this, but Mark is a therapist, and we're actually in his Harley Street offices. And it's like, and part of, and I'll own, I've had therapy, miscellaneous kind of times in my life and the rest of it, and it's generally been about finding out more about myself, right? It's generally been about that. And I just want to kind of touch on for you, what you want to get out of this. Okay. So what I want to get out of it for myself is to be able to pass on. There's a couple of things: to pass on a message and to try and be really authentic. Now, authentic means to be as honest as I possibly can,
right? Knowing the fact that I want to lie or magnify myself a lot of the time. So to try and be aware of the ego, how it tries to, because the ego is shaky and I'm shaky and insecure as an individual. So therefore I'll try and magnify myself somehow to get acceptance or love or value. So within it, I want to be as authentic. And when I catch myself lying, which I will on these things as time, I can readjust it and say, oh, I just lied. That didn't quite happen. I've just magnified that. Or just try and work towards, because my life was about, all my life really was about lying until I got clean. Really, it was all about a shaky, insecure boy who used to fight a lot when he was a kid to try and get validation, became a daredevil, looked for drugs. The root of it all really is codependency. The root of it.
Okay, can I take you back again? Because and that's great, and I love that. I love that. I'll take you back. So you mentioned the word clean, right?
Clean, and so
what is clean?
Clean was for me clean, right? Okay, and there's different, right? Clean initially was stopping using the drugs of choice, the drugs that I was addicted to at the time, and alcohol. To be abstinent, to complete abstinent from all consciousness changing drugs, because I used them to numb my feelings so that I could cope with life, and it desensitized me. It made me so that sensitivity, that heightened sensitivity that I had as that kid running around Glasgow and that poor sort of upbringing and everything else, the drugs and alcohol worked. So got clean. And then the next part of it was, how do I recover myself? How do I find, as Michael was talking about, who am I? Because I had no idea I knew who I was, who I projected to different people at different times, because I wanted them to see these different types of ego identities. But who was I really at the core? And then that's the journey. So they talk about the journey from the head to the heart. Right. Okay. Right. So what's the journey from the head to the heart? Right.
12 inches.
So, 12 inches. So who am I really? Now, I am accumulation of everything that's ever happened to me in my life. Every single thing that happened, I'm accumulation of that. But there's more than that. Right, okay. Do you know what I mean? Because there's another part that can witness that, can witness the thinking. Right. So there's something much deeper within it all.
So I think that you know, what I heard there and kind of leaps out like, whew, like, you know, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, that's what you're saying, right? Yeah, that's what you're saying. That's what we could say, the essence of what we're trying to do here. Yeah? Wouldn't you kind of agree with that, Michael?
Yeah.
Paul, it's kind of like, who am I? And, you know, and part of this journey, a part of this process, and the process is we do these podcasts and we discuss, you know, topics that are kind of poignant to us, that we think have some sort of value to people listening out there. So
there's a vulnerability within it, Pot Tosca. There's a vulnerability, because if I show you who I really am, there's a vulnerability that if I'm being really honest, the head says, the ego says, oh, you won't like that, you won't like, I've got to project. Right. So it's about being vulnerable so that other people can relate to it. So here, we're all trying to be within it, being honest, but also vulnerable, so that people can identify with the vulnerability, because that's where the healing is. When you provide a true version of yourself, people relate. And they then can provide a true version of their self, or they can think, "Oh shit, I've got I've got that." But that's really what it's. And then that's got the power to help people really like start to understand and get self-awareness and go on and they're on their own journey, you know.
So you talked about your experience of drugs. How long did you use drugs for?
Just for 16, 17 years, really, from 15. Well, I started when I was 12 or 13 drinking. Like Michael was saying, I used to thieve and then cans of Special Brew. My dad used to drink Special Brew, or wasn't Tenant Super back then, but Special Brew, and I had the first drink of that when I was like 13. I grew up in a poor working class area in Glasgow, tenement buildings, and I was born really into a rock bottom. When I look back on it, I was born into a rock bottom, really.
What's a rock bottom?
Rock bottom. I was born into a household where there was very little hope, there was very little ambition, very little prospect, and crime was normalised and promoted to some degree. And there was a lot of resentment. There was a lot of, there was transgenerational influences going way back, and bitterness about their situation, about why So I guess I was born into a family where they had no money, they had no resources. So from a young age, I was only 6, I think maybe 7 or 8, and I used to steal from my dad's, like you. I thought the only way out of this is money. If I can get enough money, I can break out of this and I can have a different life. So money was a real driver. Money was an addiction, right? Money was at the pursuit of money, and the thinking, the preoccupation with getting money was something that, was prioritised above a lot of other thoughts in my head. And from a young age, I thought, this is the way out of it. If you get enough money. So, of course, crime's going to come along, because crime, you can make money quickly, of course. And and especially if you've got the fertile ground where it's promoted as well, and you see the people that have got money and you're looking up to them sort of role models, you start seeing them and they've got nice cars or motorbikes or whatever they've got, nice girlfriends. You immediately are attracted to that, and you start to, and also if you've got the social skills where I was around. Look, we say in recovery, there's 2 paths. There's the psychopath and the spiritual path, and I there's a part of me that was like able to deal with psychopath, was able to navigate different types of characters from a young age, because my dad was so volatile. So I got used to being around volatility and danger, and I got really attracted to it. I got adrenalised by it, and the brain got rewired from a young age as well. So it's like a fruit on a tree. It's like ripe. By the time drugs and alcohol came, that fruit was ripe. I was off and running as soon as the drugs and alcohol came.
So and that was really eloquent, and I got a real kind of strong sense of where you kind of came from. And you mentioned recovery in that, and you mentioned clean. And is there some sort of process that you think that the boys and girls should kind of know about, that would kind of maybe enlighten them about where your journey and how you kind of went from these 16, 17 years of doing this thing perpetually, and you don't do that anymore? How do you get clean, and what is recovery in context with that?
Aye, you're right. Okay, so me and Michael were talking about this morning before Paul came along, but basically recovery, I had to go into residential, I had to go into a detox, a state-funded detox.
What does detox mean?
A detoxification unit, which was in a psychiatric hospital in Croydon, where I now stay. There's a hospital there, and they had a unit in there for people with drugs and alcohol also. And
I drink detox tea, right?
Aye. And
what's
not quite like detox tea.
Okay,
so I was chronically addicted to heroin, so I had to get heroin every day. I was also on methadone, which is a substitute which was created by Hitler, and when the Americans found it after the Second World War, synthetic. So I was addicted to that. I was addicted to crack, psychologically. And so when I stopped, I had to go into a unit at the time. I couldn't do it. I felt I couldn't do it. I couldn't stop out here. I didn't have the power. And I had, like what Michael's, and I had a spiritual experience really in St Thomas's. So I had a moment where I completely asked. I cried out inside my spirit for something outside.
Why were you in St Thomas Hospital?
Because I had a shot up some heroin. Right. Shot up some heroin. My friend had HIV at the time, and back then, if you were HIV positive, you could get opiate. They used to prescribe diamorphine amps, pure heroin, and he gave me an amp. I overdosed. I sort of went over in the toilet, nearly that, like touch and go. It came to. And it's quite mad, really, because somebody put the lights off in the toilet. And when I came to from shooting up the heroin, I thought I was blind, right? I thought I was blind. I thought, shit, I've done it this time. I've done it this time. I'm blind. And then I seen a light at the bottom of the door, right? The thing. And I realised I'm in this toilet, that's right, I was in this toilet. Anyway, I put the light on. And in that toilet that night, and both my children were born in that hospital, in St Thomas's Hospital. And what's important about this is, that night, I had suicidal ideation for about 4 years. I was like, I wanted to kill myself. I kept thinking about jumping under a tube. And that night I cried out. I just says, if there's anything there outside me that can help me, please. I mean, really. And within a couple of months, I was arrested. I was sent to Belmarsh, where Paul was at the time, in '96. I wound up on remand for a free charge. It was something I wasn't even really responsible of all the charges. That one I wasn't really responsible, but I wound up on this charge. And then if I fast forward 7 years, my son was born in that hospital, and I went back down to the toilet where I'd shot up that night, and I looked in the mirror, and my son had just been born, and I looked at myself and I thought, you're the same man that was here 7 years ago, and yet 7 years ago you want to kill yourself, and this is like one of the happiest days in your life. Yeah. You've just witnessed your son being born, and and I just think so a lot of this is about we've had two lives within one life, and a lot of people don't have two lives in one life. Do you know what I mean? They really don't. And so I think it's we've got the potential to really sort of, and I can feel it in this room. I can feel the energy in this room. We've got the potential, the experience, the life experience, and the other guests we're going to get on the show.
Okay, I feel like standing up and applauding. It was really good. So you've written a couple of books.
I'll say them again. Right, this was the thing. Nothing to Declare, Confessions of an Unsuccessful Drug Smuggler. And the other book's called The Ongoing Path. The other book is an ongoing path because when I was clean a while, I could see it, clean and sober, as in drugs now, I could see my addiction. And this is back to the codependency thing.
What does codependency mean?
Codependency means that there's a vacuum inside. Now, we can say this is a human condition, or we can say we all have it, because if you look right across society, people, drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, eating disorder, if you self-harm, credit card debt, consumerism, but codependency at the root means there's a part of me always looking outside me for something external to fix me. Yeah. Whether that's a woman, whether that's drugs or alcohol, whether that's Bitcoin, whether that's, a Harley Street prestige, kudos, success, it could be a number of different things that we become attached to and addicted to. So the journey from the head to the heart thing is realising, it's back to what Michael was back to, what you're saying as well, is that nothing external. I mean, I have to get a connection with myself, and if there's something existential, I have to get a connection with that. Now, or I have to feel a connection with other people. If it's not an existential thing, I have to feel an integrity with my fellow man and woman. And I mean by integrity, like that I'm connected with them, I'm being truthful and being honest, I'm not causing harm. So that's the So we're seeking
intimacy. We're seeking a certain level of intimacy.
Yeah.
And that in itself allows other people to kind of engage and maybe touch something in themselves that they didn't really kind of honour or respect or give any kind of credibility to. Would that be right?
Yeah, intimacy, but no intimacy just in a sexual, we're craving sex. I know, but intimate.
Come away from this.
Yeah, that's your stuff, mate.
Okay, hands up. Yeah. Partially, yeah. But right, but yeah, that's it. We want to be authentic. We want to be real. We want to be connected. Look. The quality of somebody's happiness depends on their social interaction with others. So the better, if I'm sitting resentful at Michael or Paul or you or whatever, my happiness is depreciated because I'm in the resentment. The two areas of my life that causes unmanageability is my resentments and my sexual conduct, really. So if I'm like, basically what I'm trying to do then is I'm trying to be in integrity as much as I possibly can with myself and connect with other people, and that if I'm happy with other individuals and I'm not an ego and I'm not aloof or I'm judging or I'm arrogant, if I'm connected as much as I possibly can, my life is better. And do you know what's mad is, no matter how much money we get in the bank, because I could have 100, like even when I was drug dealing, I get a lot of money, but what does it mean? It's just a number in a bank account, right? It doesn't really. So I could have all that money. I know I see clients here every day who are brokers who have just made 6 million the year before on. They're sitting there in front of me. They're not happy. You know what I mean? Because they're just looking for something else. They're getting a bigger boat, or they're getting a bigger. So they're chasing all the time. So it's my true happiness is dependent on the connection with my family, my kids, my friends. That's where it's really at, I think.
Bravo.
Okay, thank you.
Bravo. Thank you for that. And okay, thank you, Mark. I was very moved by that. Yeah, very, very moved. And moving swiftly on to the third author. Not that I've got some sort of inferiority complex. Maybe I'll get some therapy with you after this.
I'll give you meat rates,
if you could. Because but about being an author, because it's clearly something that I need to be doing. We're moving swiftly on to our third guest, our third contributor to the Gritty Nitty Podcast, something we're going to be doing on a regular basis. And this is the first one. It's an introduction to all the participants. And fourth, but definitely not least, is young Paul Ferris, aka the Wee Man. What does the Gritty Nitty mean to you, my friend?
The Gritty Nitty is kind of a reversed angle on getting to the nitty gritty, getting to the meat, getting to the bone, getting to the marrow, getting to the evidence, and maybe analysing things between a collective group rather than an individual opinion. And it's been an honour and a privilege to be invited here. I've listened to your own intro to Oscar. I've known Michael's family for many years, and Mark brings another dimension to the debate. My involvement with Gritty Nitty is a privilege and an honour. That collectively, if we can become a mad scientist that puts in some different elements in a test tube and heats it up to whatever it is, or sometimes there's an impact on it, it means it's to do with certain elements that create something by accident. A bit like serendipity, the words that, the flowery words that I was taught by my previous social worker, best friend, mentor, and co-author, and Reg Mackay, who mentions the words like serendipity, and he's an author, he's a wordsmith, and we feel kind of humbled at the fact that we've wrote books and you ain't done one yet, Oscar, but we'll help you get wherever you're going. But for me,
yes, please.
For me to write the book, you want to go on a journey. If people want to write the books for financial reasons, there's not a lot of money in it. To me, it's a journey. It's been, again, another word that Reg used, cathartic. It's beneficial for yourself and your well-being. My involvement in literature and writing books at the first occasion was when I was in Belmarsh prison. Me and an old friend, Arthur Sutty, who was friends to Michael's father, we were the first ones in the UK to get arrested by security services, and it's not an accolade, it's not something to be proud about, but it's a factual thing in which you want to get to the nitty gritty, get to the truth, get to the marrow, get to the bone, produce what you're doing. It's something that's not to glamorise it, but the obvious fact there is when you get mentioned in the centenary of the security services, even if it's just a passing sentence or a paragraph, we're in it purely because the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland.
What is the security service?
Security service is you've got two groups. You've got MI5, which deals with the counter-terrorism in the UK, and then you've got MI6 that flits between MI5 and MI6 that creates a global terrorism to protect the Crown, protect the UK and other agencies around the world who they all work with, like Europol, Interpol, Mossad, other secret services. So there's a CIA. So there's a collection in which we call security services. It's something in which it's domestic terrorism, but very seldom did they get involved in crime. It was only because of the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland where the terrorism was stood down.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
What does a domestic mean in that?
A domestic as MI5, they look at the UK security aspects, potential extremists coming in from overseas in conjunction with MI6. MI6 is more domestic terrorism, it's more of a European or global terrorism, but different standards in it. My understanding is MI5 is to do with focused on protecting the UK only. MI6 has got a global concept in which it's a different branch, a different area. So you've got MI5 and MI6.
Oh, okay, that's a different.
I once said I worked for MI5 and a half, but because somebody had asked what involvement you in, I was involved in security, but it was never security services.
So obviously
security.
you can elaborate as much as you want, but I'm sure people out there in YouTube and Radio Land are, busy Googling your name now and thinking, and putting in secure core services and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Could you just kind of elaborate on what that kind of looked like and what we're really talking about? What was your involvement? In as broader strokes as you like. Don't glamorise it.
A broader strokes was sometimes that people ask the question, what brings an individual to the attention of security services? Because what you've got is evidence gatherers like police that involved themselves in crime, and then you've got the judiciary that leads on the evidence gatherers, that takes them in front of a jury for due process to find they're either guilt or their innocence. That's a criminal aspect to it. When you've got counter-terrorism that gets involved in it, the only reason they were involved in my case was because there was a stand down on the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. There was loads of security services, MI5, that was they weren't active in domestic terrorism because of the Good Friday Agreement. So they were assigned to look at serious and organised crime. And on that aspect, it is, I did get arrested in London in 1997, again with an individual that Michael knows, Arthur City. And
wonderful man.
It was to do with there was a whole series of involvement in it, but what the police found and what the security services found was facts. There was never any stitch up, there was never any planting evidence. There was a box containing several Mac 10 machine guns, silencers, 3,000 rounds of ammunition and explosives. So
we can have a party, way.
well, if I knew, but there was a deal. I've made quite a lot of situations available. I wrote about it in the books, but there was a situation where somebody had already ordered these sort of things.
It's like Littlewoods.
That was the eBay. It wasn't the eBay, but somebody had ordered these things who was also Scottish. And I'd been over to Arthur for a entirely different thing, because the main guy who was involved in it, a guy called John Ackerman, he's dead now. He was involved in a whole host of other financial things and firearms. He was the captain of the gun club in Islington.
I bet he was.
No, he was. And Islington at that time, when I got to know exactly what it was all about, I thought, how fucking strange am I there? And only went that day. Only went that day to collect some photographs with Arthur City, because the guy in question, John Ackerman, was actually Sheila's stepbrother.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it.
So the whole involvement, when he heard my accent being Scottish and a few names were mentioned, I checked him out. What he basically said was, Paul, that's been lying here for a week, 2 weeks. Can you sort something out? And I did. I took the box, never knew it was in the box. If I knew what was in the box, I'd have still took it. I don't shrink for that, I've said it. But I did have the main guy who had organised it, wanted to do a phone conference when I was in Belmarsh so it gets recorded, that he takes some responsibility and moves it on. But I thought, do you know what, I can't even do that. The security services was on me, but they bugged my house, my car, my phones, purely because that's what the nature of the business is. And when it became apparent that I was the cause of the arrest, I tried to get my old friend Arthur Sutty at the whole case, by making a deal with the prosecution. There was a girl there who'd been sent down, who was a girlfriend of the fellow who organised the arms deal. And although I brought the attention on it and I was wanting to do a deal, I could never do a deal and accept the Crown's position that it's a conspiracy to sell or transfer weapons, because it means that the people, the girl who'd been sent down, and Arthur Sutty, who was more or less a glorified taxi driver at that time, I don't know London, he was taking me in a variety of different places. I was advised by my own legal defence, the only way that I can help these people is by admitting things in the witness box, which I did. It never helped me any, because it was like either a guilty plea or you ain't guilty. So there's elements where I've been a witness in other trials, and I've got to be very careful about what I say, because I've been involved in giving evidence, not as an accused, but as a witness for the defence for other people. So when you get to the true crime aspect and the hierarchy, the litmus test is, and it's not great accreditation or to glorify a particular situation. We were first, me, Arthur Sutty, Connie Howarth, we were the first in the UK to be arrested with non-domestic policing. It was to do with security services, in conjunction with in conjunction with other agencies like Strathclyde Police.
Does it go to the Crown though? Is it the same sort of trial as if you was arrested by the police?
No, there was the figurehead for the surveillance was MI5. They were working in conjunction with City London Police, Metropolitan Police, Strathclyde Police. So you've got hierarchy all the way down. So it was a team effort. Right. And what they've done. I remember when we get arrested, I laugh now, but I shouldn't laugh, but I remember when we get arrested, it was like one of the big deer hunts in the Highlands, or a lion that's been bagged in Africa, where they've got the foot on the carcass and I seen the photograph, I lost it, but they were all delighted that
we got the
they got it, and the fact that they mentioned it in the centenary of the security services, called The Defence of the Realm. And
there's a film, Gabriel.
No, Defence of the Realm. But this is a centenary of security services, not just MI5 but MI6. And I made a mistake by saying to a very good friend of mine and a film producer, Ray Burdiss, was looking for background material for the new films and new projects. Told him the name of the book, but I forgot to tell him what page it was on. Right, and it's a big thick book, but it's a centenary. An organisation that, when he got the book, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, I asked him over a phone call, how you get on with the book. He says, I think he said he was stuck at page 1,300. And I thought, oh fuck, beep. But I forgot to tell him exactly what page it was. It's only a certain paragraph. But as far as true crime is concerned, that's something that's unavoidable. It's the same element of the nitty gritty. We get to the gritty nitty on all the aspects of it. If somebody's coming here, like we are collectively, we need to let an audience know who we are. Yeah. Sometimes it's on Google, sometimes it's on other searches, sometimes there's other books involved in it. What was the reason for writing the books? And more importantly, why are we sitting here right now? What we're trying to promote. There's elements where the last 6 months focused on podcasts. There's some people that do a good job and some people that don't really do a good job. And what is the message that's getting promoted? Because rather than the he said, she said element, it's a waste of time. But I think there's a need for people to blow the cobwebs off.
Yeah.
But it devalues the audience. You know, people want to be entertained. A lot of people like scandal. You know, a lot of people would love the banter and going, well, it's not for us. We don't get to set up a barrier. We've got credibility and a massive responsibility to an audience, a potential audience, who, for the sake of what we say, will take our words for good or ill. So we need to be careful.
No, very true.
On what we say.
That's very true.
And, you know, and there's an aspect on, I'm all for education. It's a bit like, I've been involved as a kid, being bullied. I like to talk about bullying. I like to be there for people. No, not just bullying at school, but corporate bullying, verbal bullying, all these sort of things. I tend to get involved in things that's basically...
Yeah, I mean,
it's got nothing to do with me, Tosca, but sometimes I felt if you recognise it and walk away from it, you might as well be taking part in it. So there's an element where people would say, why are you getting involved in this? It's nothing to do with you. And they're quite right. But to me, it's an exorcism. The same way as writing books. That's cathartic. Maybe and whatever words you want to use, if you feel better. If you want to go and chase finances, do you feel better with finances? Suppose you do.
Yeah.
If that's your goal. But in order to get your story and what your vibe is, I think collectively between the gritty nitty and what we've got, we get to the nitty gritty on the issues of the guests that we get on board. And collectively we've all got a view. Nobody's right or wrong. I don't think there's any particular way in which to say this is how it's done. To give a story on how we failed as individuals and talk about we've been on a journey. We've not read the brochure. We've been on the flight. We've been on the path. We can say to people, this is our journey, and if you think you're done that journey, then you might want to reconsider what we've got to say.
Superb.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back, I mean, I suppose the marked difference between, you know, you, Mark, and Michael, and definitely myself, is that there's been a film that depicts your life up to a certain point, which was it filmed in 2013 with Martin Compson?
It was filmed before that, but the release was 2013.
Released in 2013. It's called The Wee Man. I think it's available to watch definitely on Amazon Prime.
You can get it through Amazon. It's currently listed on BBC iPlayer
and BBC iPlayer.
It's done its rounds. It's been on Amazon, Google.
It's on
Prime.
Netflix, isn't it?
It's on Netflix. So what happens there is the distribution company gets paid for UK rights, then it goes into international rights. But currently, just now, if anybody's want to watch it, it's on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer. Go to Scotland, click on films, you'll get it there. But you can download it from Amazon.
Okay, and moving from what you were just talking about and depicting somebody that doesn't like injustice, doesn't like bullies, and watching that film, is that a parody on your? Is it a real parody on your life, or is it how true to life is the film?
I think the director Ray Burdiss captured at least 80% accuracy. And remember, it's a film. It's not a documentary. It's not a docudrama. It's not an in-depth fly on the wall sort of stuff, where a director has got a responsibility to look at somebody's life and try and get that composed and recorded within an hour and 30 minutes. They introduced a thing called faction or artistic license to condense it. And one of the things they condensed in the movie was the death of my dog, The dog actually got killed, but it got killed under different circumstances. But he used it, the director, Ray Burders, as a way to show...
he was emotional.
As a way to show... We had a young actor called Daniel Kerr, who was playing me as a young kid. And one of the things was we couldn't expose that young actor to physical violence. So the story about the dog conveyed how bad these group of people was, to convey a kind of a motel morality for the audience, for the viewers who don't know nothing, and move it on. So I think any film you'll find has got an element of that clicks on. You need 1 hour, 30 minutes, purely because the audience has got an attention span. Whether it's a true and accurate event, I don't think any film that's ever been made is 99 or 100% true and accurate. Otherwise, go to a docudrama, go to a documentary.
And even those are...
he would notice it. The thing we did have at a very early stage, Tosca, was the local authorities, the police, didn't want it filmed there. Glasgow Film nobody wanted it filmed. It was one of these thorns in the side that had won all the judicial battles. They don't want potential juror members looking at it. They don't even want the police to guard streets when that same institution is getting challenged for corruption. And I've been there to side of corruption. I don't like it. I don't like the taste of it. But if you've got somebody with a uniform and a badge, or somebody that's not got a uniform but with a badge, that are going out with their remit for what they get paid to do, and try to put something in my pocket or in my car, whether it's drugs or firearms, or either a drug dealer or there is an arms dealer, don't jump behind that and become a police officer after a while. They jumped into my life, into my environment. They became a gangster drug dealer. They became a gangster firearms guy. I don't like it, and I challenged it. And there's audio tapes about threats to kill and all the rest. They're all mentioned in books. This has been a 30-year fight. This has probably been, the last couple of years I've found to be mellowed. I don't need to argue with anything. It's all there in black and white. They've never been challenged in literary sources through the courts for libel, defamation. Their deafening silence speaks volumes for the allegations.
Okay, so fantastic, and that's really enlightening, because the security stuff, and so moving forward, you've written a couple of books. What are those books called?
The first book I wrote was when I was serving a prison sentence for the firearms in Franklin Prison. I was contacted by my ex-social worker when I was 16, probation officer in England, they're called. And he was wanting to write something on a fatality on at a private area in Glasgow called Black Hill, who at that time, and back in the 40s and 50s and the early 60s, they were manufacturing their own alcohol. And there was a few fatalities because people got an industrial alcohol for the local brewers. That industrial alcohol was to clean the tanks, no for consumption. And then when you get people who were maybe dyslexic, didn't know too much about, they seen the word alcohol and they make their own hooch. So there were quite a lot of fatalities in the Black Hill area. And Reg Mackay was contacting me because I was born in Black Hill, I know about Black Hill, for this project. And I thought at the time, you want to write a book about the fatalities in Black Hill? I've read through an internal security report when I was in prison, because I knew I was never getting parole, but I just wanted to make sure I wanted to do all the courses to know, to give them an opportunity to say, well, you never done that course, you ain't getting parole. I'd done all the courses and I got, matter of fact, it was a new UK ruling, I think it was been the year 2000, where you get the Freedom of Information request. Yeah. That you'll get non-sensitive material released to you for 10 pence a sheet, an A4 sheet. And some of the stuff I'm reading in that, and I thought, I was a bit misguided with it. I never knew about the evidence gathering, and a bit pissed off with what I was reading. And and all of a sudden I got a letter through for Reg Mackay, who had never spoke to since I was 16, wanted to write this book. So I thought, all right. So during the course of the conversation, I never met Reg since that time. Done the conversation on the phone, prison phone. I get banned for speaking to him because the security found out that we were writing a book. And luckily for me, Reg Mackay's wife's name was Jerry. So I used to use the same phone numbers. Reg would answer and I'd say, "Is that you, Jerry?" "Yeah, it is." "Tell Reg this." You know, what we used to do is some of the boys, I get manuscripts in from other prisoners, political prisoners, IRA boys, serious and organised crime boys for London, that used to get these parcels in for manuscripts at the gymnasium, and then I would get them. And that's how we wrote the book for that year, called The Ferris Conspiracy. The only thing I was never happy with that book was, just due before publication, we had to change the name of the cops. Not for me, but the evidence was for libel possession. That can these individuals be liable? And my own solicitor said, "Paul, irrespective of who you want to call them, there's an institution there who's got a reputation to defend anyway. So either way." And I thought, all right, by the time Reg changed their names, it looked a bit more sinister. But to me, it wasn't true crime. We had to, that was the faction part, yeah. And I wrote another book with Reg called Deadly Divisions, which was my first novel, fictional novel. Loved it. It's like finding all the characters here now and inventing the dialogue. I loved it. I'd like to go back and revisit it. Then the second true crime book was called Villains. Takes one to know one. Now, an audio book. I'm sure MD Google will be able to find it. Then we'll get Vendetta. Turning Your Back on Crime Could Be Deadly, subtitle. And then we've got the recent one about... normally, when Reg passed away, there was my literary partner had died. I never felt the need to write any. I'm not a writer. I'm a storyteller. Mine's his pictorial. Reg's very much a wordsmith in his literary work. So I felt that Reg had died, God bless him, and moved on. And I met a guy called Steve Wraith in Newcastle, who asked me if I would do another book, and I declined. And then they asked me, would I do a tribute book to Reg Mackay? And I thought, that's different. And we released audio tapes, secret audio tapes that I collected and some of my other friends collected, about serving police officers threatening to kill me, take me away on night fishing trips and won't be coming back. And if I was to mention that to any other right-minded person, I think he's off his head. Beep. I'd nearly done that there. So he's off his head. So what I decided to do is, Reg always said, keep your powder dry, Paul, keep the manuscripts, keep the tapes dry, keep your powder dry for this eventual time. And I got the heads up that Reg was diagnosed with cancer. I've been to a lot of funerals. I've never been to a funeral that's been totally constructed by the person who's going to die, who's been the architect of their own funeral. And I got to know about that through Reg's wife. He bought his own suit, black. bought his own coffin, black. He done two consecutive sessions for the crematorium, and I asked why, and his wife said, because some of you guys might be late for the first one. But and it was just a humbling experience how somebody who's alive can plan their exit for this world. And I thought, if I had an opportunity to do that, would I buy a black suit? Would I buy a black? The celebration of his life, it was never really religious. I know it's an issue that we'll speak on in further podcasts, Michael, and substance abuse. Reg was, we coined him a phrase that he was a champion of lost causes. He was always involved in things that other people had kind of dismissed. And that reflected on the attendance at the double session of the crematorium. And it was a celebration of his life. There was never a minister, a priest, rabbi, nobody there. There was a couple of sports personalities, a couple of news news reporter individuals who were friends of Reg, giving a testimonial on the celebration of somebody's life. And the more it was going on, I found my weakness for all the confidence that people think I've got. I was genuinely asked, I was never asked to go up and say something because my throat was gone. I can laugh now, but at that time it was a big, big loss. And then whoever was up doing the first one handed over to the second individual that's come up. And then it went to a third guy called Raymond Mead, who's a guitarist in a group called the Ronells. And anybody's ever watched a movie called with Antonio Banderas with a guitar, this guy walked down the whole aisle, really class, walked up, put his guitar over, bang, done a track for Reg, and again, totally unusual, got me by the throat again, and we had something which I had to move on. No, Red championed my cause. He was always saying after 5 years that I'd been free, I get released on the 21st of January 2002. And on the last book that we'd done, Reg was always promoting, Paul's done his bit, leave him go, do what he's done. And I want to focus on rehabilitation because rehabilitation is a myth. It's to do with a label. If the government say you're rehabilitated, then show me somebody who is. I've been out, my anniversary, I've been out 20 years, as in January 2022. I've got a few things to promote on that anniversary. I want to make it constructive. But even at then, individuals in Scotland, the judiciary, other agencies, they don't accept the fact that I've been rehabilitated. I'm not saying I have been rehabilitated. I've rehabilitated myself. I've found my peace. I don't need the government to tell me who I am. I'm me. Apart from them saying that you've got a number on your birth certificate. That's different. But I'm me. And this is what Gritty Nitty is all about. Finding who you are, what you could collectively put in the pot between us all to promote a message for people who might not know where to go. Is it something in which, can we provide all the answers? No. Or can we provide a detailed, tailored description of what somebody's looking for? I think collectively we can say, Gritty Nitty will get to the nitty gritty and provide a bit of hope and inspiration.
Amen.
For people through a whole wide variety, irrespective of your Scottish, English, Irish, Welsh. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, yellow, green. Doesn't matter about your religion aspect, your football aspects. We are all bleed the same colour. We've got a language, we've got a gift that we can promote and help. And again, I've never been involved in a team. I've always been not a lone wolf. I don't like the phrase a lone wolf, but I've always adapted things on my own. And this is the first that I've accepted to be involved in a group discussion, because what we'll do is cross-reference opinions. We'll get the guests to come on that's maybe looking for other things, or they can add towards the nitty to get the gritty, to get the gritty nitty. So we're doing it and we brand it on that place, because you'll get people say, nah, surely it's nitty gritty. It's the same thing. It's all about getting to the source, getting to the skeletal format, getting into the marrow, getting into the DNA to promote something and say collectively, it's not my message or anybody else. Collectively, can we do it? I think there's room to do it, more than room to do it. Although this is the first introduction, what we're doing, the disadvantage you've got to Oscar is people can Google our books. Right. After the second episode, they might be able to Google collectively all our books. If we pass a message on, really on the basis that take the commercial stuff away, we can all earn money, but if you're going after that financial gain, I think you lose the message. You lose the. The other thing as well is, as and when we do the podcast, there has to be some element of admin control on negative feedback. We don't want to promote good vibes for somebody to drop a negative bomb on something, so they'll be deleted. they'll be moved on, they'll be banned. If it's a constructive criticism, fair enough. But
no negativity, you'll be banned.
No, I'm not saying negativity. You might get somebody saying a question that could be negative, but it's no a criticism towards being Scottish, being a drug addict, being a religious man, or being racist to Oscar. We ain't going to have it. And our collective audience is, why should we promote something good for some troll idiot to spike something that it's not right? So I'll put my hands up and be in control of the admin. The reason for that being is, somebody was personating me in 2012 and had a Twitter account. It was good, it was fine, I read it. It brought to my attention. I read some of the replies. Friends of mine, hi Paul, haven't seen you for a while. This guy's replying, but this person could be a woman, I don't know. And I read it and I thought, that's funny. And then I thought, well, what if he says something? Then I'm going to get criticised for it. So what I had to do was contact Twitter, send them my passport, my driving licence, birth certificate, and they deleted that account and gave me an account. And I've had it ever since. So I've tried to promote positivity. I do quotes. I borrow words and amend them to suit how I feel or how I think other people are feeling at that time. And then you get feedback saying that's great words, Paul. And I have to credit the main author. But sometimes it's a hybrid. It's their words that I've just brought into a modern day era, or it's my own words. But it's to do with positivity and moving on. So I have got an active Twitter account. I'm at the computer quite a while. Don't like Facebook, but we need to focus on YouTube to get these messages out. So MDs want to fire any negativity, I'll be the admin and dealing with it. Right? I fair criticism, don't mind that. I'll use the same rules that I've done on Twitter. I don't ban people, but if you get somebody coming on and maybe they've never engaged in the dialogue, I like the engagement, I like words coming back from people. But if somebody jumps on as the first tweet and is negative, no, they can move to back of queue because they've had multiple times to come and engage with other things. That's what it is. There is a discipline. What we don't want to do is create something really good that people bypass the content to read the comments.
No, that's true.
No chance.
That's a good show.
The recent thing, the last.
What I'm going to do, right? And
has he been asked yet? Have you been asked?
What's that?
You questioned us. Have you been asked?
Of course I have. I
know you explained yourself, but did you get any pressure on you? Any questions?
Of course I did.
What questions did you get asked?
I don't know, but I just answered it. Anyway, I just want to say this. Paul said something that was really quite poignant, and it was finding out who we are. Mm-hmm. And I think that I want to kind of bring this round robin to a close. This has been the first episode of the Gritty Nitty Podcast, where we're literally finding out who we are. And I've been Tosca Jackson. You've been
Michael Emmett.
You've
Mark
been
Dempster.
And you've been
Paul Ferris.
And we'll see you all next time.
God bless.
Good stuff.
Fantastic.